Hello everyone! I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. In this video I wanted to speak to you about cost per usage. It might be a very accounting or financial term and you're like, what is she talking about? But I was kind of thinking about this recently and how I'm trying to change the way I look at spending money in a lot of different ways. This is just one aspect of it that I'm going to share in this video, but there's many other things I'm thinking about and I'm sure I'll share in future videos. But as a person, as an individual that I am, I have this tendency to be afraid somehow of spending money, even if it's on something that I need, desire, require. And as I said, I'm trying to change that. But one of the ways I've been able to do that is through changing my perspective, because this is what I really needed, was a change of perspective. I always assume that any kind of spending, it doesn't really matter what it is, I assume is bad. Oh, it doesn't matter what you're buying, even if it's something that you really need, it's bad, you shouldn't be spending it. And that's how I speak to myself in my head. No, you shouldn't buy that, it's bad, even though you might need it. Oh, I don't have any shoes, I must buy shoes. Oh no, that's bad, don't spend money on that, etc., right? I always kind of start using the excuse, oh, it's environmentally unfriendly or it's unfriendly to the environment to buy things. Well, we still have to live in the world. It doesn't mean that we start splashing money around and buying all these useless things, but we need to live in the world. We need to eat, we need to drink water. Sometimes I would not spend money on water because I was like, oh no, I don't want to spend money on water. It's a waste to buy plastic bottles. If I'm thirsty and I'm getting dehydrated because I'm not able to drink water because I don't buy it, that's a negative thing. It's not a positive way of saving the world. So of course we need to buy things in order to live in the world. We have this physical body. We are not a spiritual being completely yet. No, we're not completely enlightened that we can go without food, water, and necessities. And so we need to live in the world, and so we need clothes, we need shoes, we need the essentials, all of the stuff that we need in order to live life, and also a few luxuries in order to just make life a little bit more pleasant, right? And so of course, what I started doing in my head is I started thinking in terms of a different term, which is cost per usage. And I'm sure you've heard of this before, perhaps if you're in accounting, you probably heard of it. But whenever you purchase something, there is the actual cost, or the cost that you pay, the money that you pay for it. For example, if you buy a pair of shoes, the cost might be $50, and that's the cost of the item that you pay. And there's a cost per usage, which is the amount of money you pay per usage, the times that you use the item. For example, if you have a pair of shoes and you paid $50 for it, but if you end up using them 1,500 times, the cost per usage is much lower than $50. It's like in cents basically. But if you buy a pair of shoes for $50 and you end up using them because they're high heels and stilettos and you only wear them like occasionally, once a year, twice a year maybe, and before you throw them out you only use them 3 times, then of course the cost per usage is not in cents, but in dollars still. It's like 50 divided by 3, something like that, $17 something. Again, math is my strong suit, but doing math on a video while it's running is not my strong suit. And so of course you can see the difference, right? And so whenever I think about buying something new for myself, and I know it's important, it might be a pair of shoes or it might be a t-shirt because my t-shirts are all kind of raggedy or breaking down, or it might be a pair of pants because I don't have pants, or whatever the item might be. It doesn't really have to mean anything particular. I always think of it in terms of cost per usage. At first, I'd always think of it in terms of cost, and I'd look at the item and I'm like, whoa, that's really expensive. I don't think it's worth it. Why should I spend this money on it? But when you start thinking about it in terms of cost per usage, you realize, yes, the initial cost might be whatever it is, might be expensive or a little bit exorbitant, but over time the cost per usage is minuscule, is in cents, and so it's totally worth it to purchase that particular item. Now of course what happens with a lot of us is that we buy a lot of things but we don't use them. I used to do that a lot in the past. When I was in my early 20s, I had a lot more disposable income and I'd just go window shopping and I'd just buy all these things that I never use. I'd use them once and then donate them to Salvation Army or something like that. So of course at that point, even if I spent 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever amount of dollars on it, the cost itself was very high. But nowadays, especially nowadays that I'm a digital nomad and I'm kind of on the move all the time, I notice that I use my items until they're completely torn down, broken down, worn out, right? And so in these cases, the cost per usage, even if I spend the same amount of money, is much lower because I'm using them so much to the ground almost that I've completely gotten the value out of that item, right? It doesn't really matter how much you paid in the beginning, it matters how much you use it. And so in a lot of cases, I will end up buying items that are a little bit more expensive, like my backpack, my laptop backpack that I carry around with me. It's extremely important because it carries my laptop, which is my livelihood. And so I spent a little bit extra on it because I wanted to make sure it was waterproof. I wanted to make sure that it was, it kept my laptop safe from all the elements, etc., etc. But as I said, even though I spent a little bit extra in the beginning, because I use it almost every single day, the cost per usage is actually very low. And so it actually works out really well, right? If on the other hand I was being cheap and I was like, no, but I don't want to spend that much money, and I bought a laptop bag that was cheaper, but then it broke down after like, I don't know, a week or two of using it, and I had to throw it out and buy another one, then of course the cost per usage doesn't make any sense anymore, right? So it comes down to both things. Of course, make sure that you buy things that are sturdy, have quality so they can last. If you're going to be spending extra money on it, it's okay if you're going to be using it. And again, second thing, make sure you use your items, right? Don't buy things that they're just going to sit on your shelf and gather dust. Okay? And so in both of these cases, whenever I do make a purchase nowadays, I'm extremely careful, not only because I have very limited space in my suitcases to carry things. I only usually try to carry one suitcase, sometimes two, depending on how long I'm going to places for. And so I have very limited space in them, and I want to make sure that every item I carry is useful and I'll use it to its death, right? And I don't want to carry useless items in there. So I always think of, whenever I do purchase anything new, I'm always very careful. I want to make sure again that I use it to the max, that it is worth it, that it's not going to take up space uselessly, and that it's going to last, so that I'm not always constantly thinking, oh gosh, I have to buy another laptop bag. I'm pretty sure this laptop bag that I have is going to last for years and years to come because it's so sturdy and well made, right? And so this is how I've been kind of changing my way of looking at spending money. Now you might be thinking this is very basic, but for a lot of us, for me particularly at least, this is extremely important to have that switch in perspective, because without that, I really do think that I'd be buying things feeling bad about it, right? Feeling uncomfortable about it, buying or spending money in general and not being comfortable with the idea of spending money. Little by little, I've been able to reconcile myself with the idea that yes, sometimes spending money is actually important. You need to spend money, not only to make money in business, but also spend money in order to live, to be alive, to be here on this planet as a human being, right? And so not all spending is bad. And to kind of understand the whole concept of spending money, it took me a long time to get here. And perhaps, you're already here, so that's great. Maybe you can teach me some things. But if not, I hope this video is useful to you to kind of understand a different way of looking at it. And maybe that tweak will help you feel more comfortable with the idea of buying things, but quality items that you can use for a long time to come, and use them into the ground, or use them to their death. If you have questions about this, obviously comment below and I shall do a follow-up video. I am not an expert in finances, as you might imagine. I do love learning about it, but there's a lot more people on the channel that are much better at it than I am. So if you have questions, comment below and I'm sure they'll be able to answer your questions about it. And if you have something to share about this topic, spending money or cost per usage or something related to that, please do share with us. I'm always looking to learn about how I can become more comfortable with spending money without feeling bad for it. I don't know why this has been ingrained into me. It might be because my parents were really poor when they were young, and so they always taught us, save money, don't spend money, save money, don't spend money. And so it's kind of ingrained in my head. And so even now when I have money, when they have money, we have a hard time spending it on things that are actually even required. It's not like we're spending money on useless things, extravagant things. It's on things that are necessary, but we still have a hard time with it for some reason. And so again, if you have tips or tricks to share with me, let me know. I'd love to hear. I'm sure we'd all love to hear. And again, thank you so much for being on my channel. I really appreciate your support, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.